In the vast expanse of the Milky Way galaxy, humanity finally achieved what centuries of science fiction writers had dreamed about: first contact with alien life. It wasn't the dramatic invasion scenario that Hollywood had prepared us for, nor was it the benevolent enlightenment that Star Trek had promised. Instead, it was bureaucratic. The Galactic Federation had been observing Earth for decades, waiting for humans to meet the minimum requirements for contact. They had a whole checklist: development of sustainable fusion energy, establishment of a united planetary government, elimination of at least 60% of internal conflicts, and the ability to not immediately shoot at anything that moved in space. Earth had managed to check off 3 out of 4, which was apparently close enough by Federation standards. So in 2157, the Federation officially welcomed Earth as its newest probationary member. This came with all sorts of perks: technology sharing, access to interstellar trade routes, and diplomatic representation. It also came with a metric ton of paperwork and a strict set of regulations thicker than an unabridged dictionary. Enter Jack Harlow, though not the rapper, but a 35-year-old former environmental compliance officer from New Jersey who somehow found himself appointed as one of Earth's first diplomatic representatives. Jack wasn't particularly special in any way: average height, average build, with a perpetually bemused expression that made him look like he was always trying to remember if he'd left the stove on. What he did have, however, was an uncanny ability to navigate bureaucracy and, as it would turn out, an unexpected immunity that would change the course of interstellar relations forever. Jack had been stationed on Nexus Station, a massive rotating habitat that served as the Federation's diplomatic hub, for just over 3 standard months. In that time, he'd managed to not start an interplanetary incident, which put him ahead of 3 other human representatives who had already been sent home. His secret? He simply didn't get flustered. Years of dealing with corporate pollution violations and angry boardrooms had left him with the emotional responsiveness of a particularly calm rock. Little did he know that this peculiar trait was about to make him the most important human in the galaxy. The Thrasians were not happy about Earth's admission to the Federation. Standing at an impressive 7 feet tall with iridescent scaled skin that shifted colors with their moods, they were known throughout the galaxy for their technological prowess, particularly in biochemical engineering, and their absolute disdain for anyone they deemed primitive. Humans, with their penchant for fossil fuels and reality television, definitely fell into that category. Commander Vrex Toll was the embodiment of Thrasian superiority. His scales typically maintained a smug shade of royal purple, and the twin breathing sacs on either side of his elongated neck would inflate whenever he was about to deliver what he thought was a particularly devastating verbal blow. As the head of the Thrasian delegation, he had spent the last month systematically blocking every proposal humans brought to the Federation Council. These mammals have barely figured out how to leave their own atmosphere without blowing themselves up, Vrex Toll sneered during one particularly heated council session, his scales flashing an arrogant magenta. And now they want access to Class 2 gravitational manipulation technology? Preposterous. The science officer Pinblot couldn't have been more different from Commander Vrex Toll. A member of the Quarix species, Pinblot resembled nothing so much as a sentient jellyfish floating in a custom-built environmental suit. With multiple translucent tentacles operating various scientific instruments and 6 eye stalks that swiveled independently, the Pinblot had a reputation for being both brilliantly analytical and hopelessly curious. They, Quarix, had 17 biological sexes but preferred the simplicity of they-them when dealing with binary gendered species, but had been studying humans with increasing fascination. I find their adaptability quite remarkable, Pinblot bubbled through their translator. Did you know they can survive temperature variations that would kill most sentient species? And their digestive systems. Simply fascinating. They can process substances that would be toxic to 70% of Federation members. Mediating between these opposing viewpoints was Ambassador Luminara, a tall, willowy being from the ancient Eldari civilization. The Eldari were known for their diplomatic skills and their incredibly long lifespans, but Rumor had it that Luminara had personally negotiated the original Federation charter over 3 centuries ago. With skin that seemed to glow with a soft blue light and 4 arms that moved with hypnotic grace, Luminara exuded calm authority. We must remember that all species bring unique perspectives to our Federation. Luminara reminded the Council, her voice melodic and soothing. The humans have much to learn, yes, but perhaps they also have much to teach. This balanced approach infuriated Vrex Toll, who saw humans as nothing more than hairless apes who had stumbled onto the galactic stage through sheer dumb luck. After another council meeting where a human proposal had been approved, despite his objections, Vrex Toll gathered his closest advisors in his private quarters. "This cannot continue," he hissed, his scales now a deep crimson of rage. "If we cannot block them politically, then perhaps we need to demonstrate their unsuitability more concretely." His chief scientist, a hunched Thrasian named Mokhtar, activated a holographic display showing a complex molecular structure. "We have developed what we call Compound XF319, Commander. In simple terms, it's a fear gas. One exposure causes most sentient species to experience their deepest terrors. The psychological effect is temporary but extreme." Vrex Toll's breathing sacs expanded with delight. "Perfect. We'll release it during the trade negotiations tomorrow. When the humans collapse into gibbering wrecks, the Council will have no choice but to reconsider their membership." What Vrex Toll didn't know was that Ambassador Luminara had placed listening devices in all the delegation quarters. As the Thrasians plotted, Luminara turned to Pinblot, who had been monitoring the feed. "This is most concerning," Luminara whispered, her glow dimming slightly with worry. "We must warn the humans." Pinblot's eye stalks drooped in thought. "We can't without revealing our surveillance. And the Thrasians are technically not violating any laws until they actually deploy the compound." Luminara sighed, a sound like wind through crystal chimes. "Then we must be ready to intervene. Who is the human representative for tomorrow's talks?" Pinblot checked their datapad. "Someone named Jack Harlow." "Let us hope this Jack Harlow is made of stern stuff," Luminara murmured. The Federation Trade Hall was a marvel of interstellar architecture. Its vast dome of transparent aluminum offered a breathtaking view of the starfield and neighboring nebula, while the interior was designed to accommodate the biological needs of over 200 different species. Some delegates floated in tanks of specialized liquids, others remained in sealed environmental chambers, and a few existed as projected consciousness housed in robotic frames. Jack Harlow sat at the human delegation table, scrolling through his notes on his datapad. He'd spent the night cramming on xenobiological trade restrictions, specifically focusing on Earth's proposal to export coffee, which apparently contained compounds that acted as mild hallucinogens to at least 3 Federation species. "Remind me again why I'm leading this negotiation," Jack whispered to his assistant, Michaela Rodriguez, a sharp-witted lawyer who had previously specialized in international maritime law. "Because Thompson had that allergic reaction to the Polaxian buffet, Chen is still in quarantine after the handshaking incident with the Golgame ex-ambassador. And nobody else wanted to deal with the Thrasians," Michaela replied without looking up from her own datapad. "Plus, you're the only one who doesn't visibly flinch when Commander Vrex Toll does that thing with his neck sacs." Jack sighed. "Fair enough." At that moment, the Thrasian delegation entered, led by Vrex Toll in ceremonial armor that made his already imposing frame even more intimidating. Behind him, 6 junior Thrasians carried elaborate data crystals and what appeared to be gift boxes. "Gifts?" Jack whispered. "That's new." Michaela frowned. "The Thrasians don't do gifts. Something's off." Before Jack could respond, Ambassador Luminara glided in, followed by Pinblot, whose tentacles were twitching nervously inside their environmental suit. The Eldari ambassador took her place at the mediator's podium, her 4 arms arranging various ceremonial objects with practiced precision. "Representatives of the Galactic Federation," Luminara began, her voice carrying effortlessly through the hall. We gather today to discuss the proposal from Earth regarding trade exemptions for certain organic compounds. Rex Toll's scales flickered with barely suppressed anticipation as he stood to address the gathering. Before we begin, the Thrasian Confederation wishes to acknowledge the unique addition of humans to our Federation. We have brought a traditional Thrasian greeting gift, incense from the sacred mountains of Thras Prime, which symbolizes clarity of thought and purpose. Without waiting for a response, he nodded to one of his aides who opened an ornate box. A fine mist of greenish vapor began to spread through the human delegation's section of the room. Jack noticed Pinblott's eye stalks all suddenly swing in his direction, and Ambassador Luminara's glow intensify with alarm. Before he could process these reactions, the mist reached him, and he automatically took a breath. The effect on the room was instantaneous, but not in the way Rex Toll had anticipated. Instead of collapsing in terror, Jack Harlow simply sniffed, blinked once, and remarked, "Smells like home." For a moment there was absolute silence in the trade hall. Rex Toll's scales lost all color, turning a shocked bone white. Pinblott's tentacles froze mid-twitch. Even Ambassador Luminara seemed momentarily speechless, her glow pulsating with surprise. "Is something wrong?" Jack asked, looking around in confusion. "It's a nice gesture, though it reminds me a bit of the Passaic River on a hot summer day. Or maybe the Jersey Turnpike near the refineries, hard to place exactly." Michaela, who had grown up in pristine Boulder, Colorado, was not faring as well. She had a handkerchief pressed to her face and was struggling not to cough. "Jack," she wheezed, "this isn't normal." But Jack merely shrugged. "I grew up downwind from 3 chemical plants and next to the state's largest landfill. Trust me, this is practically aromatherapy compared to what I'm used to." Rex Toll's breathing sacs deflated with an audible wheeze of disbelief. His chief scientist was frantically checking readings on a concealed scanner, his scaled hands trembling. Ambassador Luminara quickly regained her composure and clapped her 4 hands in a pattern that activated the room's purification systems. The green mist was quickly pulled away through hidden vents. "I believe," Luminara said with careful diplomacy, "that we should take a brief recess before continuing these negotiations." As delegates began to file out, Pinblott floated over to Jack, all 6 eye stalks focused intently on him. "Fascinating," they burbled through their translator. "Simply fascinating. You must allow me to run some tests, Representative Harlow." Jack, still not fully understanding what had just happened, nodded in bewilderment. "Sure, I guess. But shouldn't we finish the coffee discussion first?" Behind them, Rex Toll was quietly having what appeared to be a nervous breakdown, his scales cycling through colors faster than a malfunctioning LED display. Science Officer Pinblott's laboratory was a chaotic wonderland of bubbling liquids, holographic projections, and equipment that defied human description. Their multiple tentacles worked independently, each manipulating different instruments while their eye stalks swiveled in all directions, taking in data from dozens of screens simultaneously. Jack sat patiently on an examination table that had morphed to accommodate human physiology, watching with mild interest as Pinblott analyzed various samples they had collected from him. "This is truly remarkable," Pinblott said, their voice bubbling with excitement. "According to my analysis, your body should be in complete systemic shock. Compound XF319 targets the amygdala and other fear-processing centers of the brain, causing hallucinations and panic responses. Yet your readings show only a minor elevation in heart rate, consistent with mild curiosity." Ambassador Luminara stood nearby, her blue glow subdued with concern. "The Thrasians have violated multiple Federation protocols. They will face sanctions for this incident." Jack shrugged. "I still don't understand what the big deal is. It just smelled bad." "The big deal, Representative Harlow," Luminara explained gently, "is that the compound the Thrasians released is considered one of the most potent psychological weapons in the galaxy. It has been known to drive some species to temporary insanity. The fact that you experienced it as merely an unpleasant odor is unprecedented. Pinblott's tentacles waved excitedly. Tell me more about this home you mentioned. You said the gas reminded you of it. Jack leaned back, memories flooding in. I grew up in a town called Secaucus, in New Jersey. It's situated in what we humans jokingly call Cancer Alley, a stretch of industrial development with some of the worst air quality in the United States. My house was about a mile downwind from a chemical processing plant that made industrial solvents, next to a waste treatment facility, and across from a landfill. Pinblott and Luminara exchanged glances. And this was habitable? Luminara asked delicately. Oh, sure, Jack nodded. I mean, we had bad air days when they advised children and elderly people to stay indoors. And you didn't hang laundry outside unless you wanted it to smell like eggs and cleaning products. The tap water occasionally came out brown, but Mom always said that just meant it had minerals. One of Pinblott's eye stalks drooped in what Jack was beginning to recognize as their expression of disbelief. Let me get this straight, Pinblott bubbled. You grew up breathing air and drinking water that contained industrial pollutants on a regular basis? Well, yeah, I mean, not just me. Lots of people. That's why I went into environmental compliance work, tried to make it better for the next generation. But honestly, what the Thrasians pumped into the room was like a mild Tuesday in July when the wind was blowing from the east. Meanwhile, in the Thrasian quarters, panic had set in. Commander Vrex Toll paced frantically, his scales now a sickly yellow of fear. How is this possible? He demanded, rounding on his chief scientist. You assured me this compound would work on any species with a limbic system. Mokhtar cowered, his own scales a pale blue of submission. It should have, Commander. The human's neurological structure is compatible with the compound's designed effect. There is no scientific explanation for his immunity. Perhaps, suggested a junior aide hesitantly, humans are more resilient than we anticipated. Vrex Toll's breathing sacs inflated to twice their normal size. Impossible. They're soft, furless mammals who need constant temperature regulation and can't even survive basic radiation exposure. Back in the laboratory, Pinblott had moved from basic analysis to a full genetic workup, their curiosity now fully engaged. Your body shows signs of adaptation at the cellular level, they explained to Jack. Your liver and kidneys have enhanced detoxification pathways, and your olfactory receptors show reduced sensitivity to certain chemical groups, precisely the same groups found in industrial pollutants and, coincidentally, in compound XF319. So what you're saying, Jack summarized, is that growing up breathing literal poison has made me immune to alien fear gas. In layperson's terms, yes, Pinblott confirmed, their tentacles wiggling with scientific excitement. Your body adapted to chronic low-level exposure to toxins in a way that has accidentally made you resistant to one of the most feared biochemical weapons in the galaxy. Ambassador Luminara, who had been quietly observing, suddenly straightened, her glow brightening with realization. This changes everything about how the Federation must view human potential. The emergency session of the Federation Council had been called with unprecedented speed. All 217 member species had representatives present, either physically or via holographic projection. The central chamber hummed with multilingual whispers and the occasional burst of translator static. At the center of it all stood Jack Harlow, feeling decidedly underdressed in his standard Earth diplomatic uniform next to the elaborate ceremonial attire of the other representatives. Ambassador Luminara stood supportively at his side, while Science Officer Pinblott hovered nearby, still occasionally scanning him with handheld instruments. The Council Elder, a being so ancient and evolved it appeared as little more than a shimmer of light in vaguely humanoid form, called the session to order. We have convened to address the incident during yesterday's trade negotiations and its unexpected revelations about our newest member species. The Elder's voice resonated directly in everyone's mind, bypassing the need for translators. Commander Rex Toll of the Thrasian Confederation will speak first, as the instigator of these events. Rex Toll stepped forward, his scales now a muted gray of formal contrition that fooled absolutely no one. Esteemed Council, the Thrasian Confederation acknowledges that certain, overzealous actions were taken to test the suitability of humans for Federation membership. We accept the sanctions that will be imposed and offer our formal apology. The Council Elder's light form pulsed once in acknowledgement. Representative Harlow of Earth, you may now address the Council regarding this matter. Jack stepped forward, clearing his throat nervously. Public speaking had never been his forte, but Michaela had helped him prepare his remarks, and he'd practiced them until he could deliver them without stumbling. Thank you, Elder. Distinguished representatives of the Galactic Federation, I stand before you not as an exceptional human, but as a pretty average one, with perhaps one unusual characteristic. I grew up in one of the most polluted regions of my planet. Jack activated a holographic display showing satellite images of Earth, zooming in on the northeastern United States, then New Jersey, and finally the industrial corridor where he was raised. For context, let me explain something about Earth's recent industrial history. During what we call our Industrial Revolution and continuing through our Information Age, humans prioritized manufacturing and economic growth over environmental protection. The result was widespread pollution of our air, water, and soil. The display showed images of smog-filled cities, rivers clogged with chemical foam, and landscapes scarred by industrial waste. What Commander Rex Toll's fear gas reminded me of was simply the air I breathed every day as a child. Our bodies adapted, not comfortably or healthily, but we survived. What you consider a weapon of psychological warfare, many humans would consider just another day in Los Angeles during rush hour. A ripple of murmurs spread through the council chamber. Jack continued, now displaying data that Pinblot had compiled. Science Officer Pinblot's analysis shows that many humans from industrialized regions would likely show similar resistance to compound XF319 and correlated biochemical agents. This isn't because we're superior, it's because we nearly destroyed our own planet and had to adapt to survive our own mistakes. Ambassador Luminara stepped forward. If I may add context, Honorable Council, what Representative Harlow is too modest to emphasize is the extraordinary resilience this demonstrates. The human species has essentially undergone rapid microevolution in response to self-created environmental pressures, developing resistances that even our most advanced genetic engineering struggles to produce. Pinblot's tentacles waved enthusiastically. The implications are fascinating. Humans may possess unique physiological adaptations that could benefit the entire Federation. Their immune systems alone could revolutionize our approach to certain hostile environments. Commander Rex Toll, unable to contain himself, burst out, "Are we seriously suggesting that poisoning their own world makes these primitive mammals valuable? That breathing toxic waste is somehow an achievement?" Jack turned to face the Thrasian commander. "Not an achievement, Commander, a mistake, but one we're working to correct. And in the process, we've gained perspectives and adaptations that might be useful to share. For instance, the technology we've developed for environmental remediation could be applied to planets suffering from similar contamination." One of the council members, a crystalline being from a silicon-based species, chimed in. "If I understand correctly, humans have essentially inoculated themselves against certain chemical and psychological weapons entirely by accident." "That's one way of putting it," Jack nodded. "Though I wouldn't recommend our approach as a deliberate strategy. The cancer rates in my hometown were not great." Ambassador Luminara's glow brightened. "The point, Council, is that humans have demonstrated an adaptability and resilience that we previously underestimated. What appeared to be their weakness, their industrial pollution, has paradoxically become a source of unexpected strength." Commander Rex Toll's scales had shifted to a deep blue of humiliation as he realized that his attempt to discredit humans had instead elevated their standing in the Federation. His breathing sacs seemed permanently deflated. The council elder's light form pulsed thoughtfully. It seems we have much to reconsider about our newest members. Perhaps in their flaws and struggles, there are lessons for us all. 3 standard weeks after what was now being called the inhalation incident in diplomatic circles, Jack found himself standing on an observation deck of Nexus Station, watching the ships of various Federation species come and go against the backdrop of stars. The Earth delegation's status had undergone a remarkable transformation, from barely tolerated newcomers to respected partners with unique insights to offer. Contemplating your newfound celebrity? Ambassador Luminara asked as she glided up beside him, her blue glow casting gentle shadows. Jack chuckled. Hardly celebrity material. All I did was breathe. Sometimes the most profound actions are the simplest ones, Luminara replied. The revised trade agreements have been finalized this morning. Earth has been granted exceptional status for environmental remediation technology exchange. And coffee? Jack asked with a small smile. And coffee, Luminara confirmed, her glow rippling with amusement, though with appropriate warning labels for those species with heightened sensitivity to caffeine. Science Officer Pinblot bobbed into view, their environmental suit newly upgraded with additional sensor arrays. Representative Harlow. Excellent news. The Council has approved my research proposal. We're establishing the Earth Environmental Adaptation Study with a facility in your New Jersey. Thus, volunteers from 63 Federation species will be participating. Jack blinked in surprise. You want to study Secaucus? And Newark, Elizabeth, Bayonne, the entire industrial corridor. Pinblot's tentacles waved with enthusiasm. The biochemical interactions are unprecedented in our records. We believe there may be applications for enhanced terraforming techniques and new medical treatments for toxin exposure. Just don't tell the New Jersey Tourism Board you're there to study the pollution, Jack advised. They're still sensitive about that. A shadow fell across them, and Jack turned to find Commander Vrex Toll standing awkwardly nearby, his scales a subdued mauve that Jack had never seen before. Representative Harlow, the Thrasian said stiffly. I have been instructed by my government to offer a personal apology for my actions. Apology accepted, Jack replied easily. No lasting harm done. Vrex Toll's breathing sacs inflated slightly with what might have been relief. There is more. The Thrasian Confederation wishes to establish a joint research project with Earth focusing on environmental resilience and adaptation. It seems we have something to learn from your species after all. Jack smiled and extended his hand. After a moment's hesitation, Vrex Toll reached out one scaled hand and completed the human handshake ritual. As Vrex Toll departed, Luminara turned to Jack. You have achieved in 3 weeks what might otherwise have taken decades of diplomatic effort. Jack shrugged. All thanks to growing up downwind from the Secaucus Municipal Waste Treatment Plant. Who knew it was preparing me for interstellar diplomacy? 1 month later, the first official cultural exchange between Earth and the wider Federation took place. Delegates from 20 species arrived on Earth for a tour of major cities and natural wonders. As a joke that quickly became serious, Jack had arranged for specially sealed containers of authentic Earth urban air from various cities to be presented as diplomatic gifts. The containers, labeled with names like Beijing Morning Haze, London Fog, Los Angeles Rush Hour, and New Delhi Summer Smog, became coveted curiosities among Federation diplomats. Some species found them utterly horrifying, while others were fascinated by the complex chemical compositions that humans had somehow adapted to breathe. In a moment of inspired diplomacy, Earth's united government proposed a new initiative in exchange for helping Federation species understand human adaptability. Earth would receive advanced technologies to clean up the very pollution that had inadvertently become their unique contribution to galactic knowledge. As the Federation Council unanimously approved the initiative, Jack Harlow stood at the podium, a container of what was labeled EOD Garden State Parkway in his hands. On behalf of Earth, I'm pleased to present the Federation with this sample of what we call fresh air from my homeland, he announced with a perfectly straight face. "We hope it reminds you of us when we're not around." The laughter that rippled through the council chamber sealed Earth's place in the Galactic Federation more effectively than any formal treaty ever could. And somewhere in the back of the chamber, Commander Vrex Toll's scales had finally settled into a begrudging shade of respectful turquoise as he realized that perhaps these humans were going to be interesting additions to the galaxy after all.